The humid night was thick with the smell of honeysuckle as Ruby skipped down the lane. She hummed to herself, her fingers drumming against her thighs. Her date with Kate had been going well. The two had met at the local bar, a dive mostly frequented by bikers and truckers, and hit it off immediately. And now they were walking back from the bar towards Kate's house. "I haven't had this much fun in ages," Ruby said, grinning. "Me neither," Kate replied, squeezing Ruby's hand. The two walked on in comfortable silence for a while. Kate lived in an old Victorian house that looked like it hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint in decades. The peeling white paint hung off the window sills, and the front porch sagged precariously from its foundation. But to Ruby, it was the most beautiful house she'd ever seen. When they reached the porch, Kate turned to Ruby, her face illuminated by the glow of the street lamp beside them. She leaned in and kissed Ruby, and Ruby kissed her back, her arms winding around Kate's neck. The kiss deepened, and Ruby could feel Kate's tongue swirl against hers. As she broke away from the kiss, she could see the lust in Kate's eyes. "Come inside," Kate whispered. "I'll show you something." Ruby nodded dumbly, still caught up in the moment. As soon as they opened the door, the smell of stale waste and decay hit them. Kate flicked on a light, and Ruby gasped. Cobwebs hung from the corners of the room, and trash lay strewn across the floor. A TV sat in the corner, its screen flickering with static. "This place is a dump," Ruby said, wrinkling her nose. Kate laughed, a sharp, mirthless sound. "It's perfect," she said, taking Ruby's hand and pulling her deeper into the house. In the kitchen, a single bare bulb cast harsh shadows on the chipped countertops and threadbare curtains. Kate poured Ruby a glass of water, which she drank greedily. "Can I get you anything else?" Kate asked. "Like what?" Ruby asked, raising an eyebrow. "Blood," Kate said softly. Ruby stared at her for a moment. "What?" she asked. Kate repeated. "Blood," she said, her eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Do you want my blood?" Ruby asked, leaning closer. Kate nodded slowly. "I'd like that very much." Ruby backed away from Kate, her heart pounding in her chest. Was this some kind of joke? Was Kate serious? Before Ruby could respond, Kate lunged at her, her nails extended like talons. Ruby screamed and stumbled back, knocking over a chair. She could see the hunger in Kate's eyes, the raw, primal desire for blood. Fear propelled her. She ran out of the house and didn't stop until she reached the safety of her own home. As she lay in bed that night, she could still hear Kate's scream echoing in her ears. Had it all been a dream? No, she thought. The pain in her leg, a dull ache where Kate's nails had dug into her flesh. She sat up in bed and looked at the scratches on her leg. They were deep, angry red lines that throbbed with pain. She pressed her fingers against them and winced. Blood welled up and stained her fingers crimson. A knock on the door made her jump. Who could it be at this hour? She crept to the door and peered through the peephole. It was Kate. Ruby froze as she saw the wild look in Kate's eyes. There was something inhuman about her, something predatory. Kate knocked again, and this time she began to speak. "Ruby, let me in," she said. Her voice was a low growl. "I need your help." "Help," Ruby echoed, confused. Kate's normally gentle eyes were now blazing orbs of crimson. "Let me in, please," Kate said. Her voice was desperate. Something in her tone made Ruby's maternal instincts kick in. She unlocked the door and stepped aside to let Kate enter. The sight that greeted her was one she would never forget. Kate was pale as death, her eyes wide and vacant. Her skin was clammy to the touch and her breath shallow. "What happened to you?" Ruby asked, alarmed. Kate opened her mouth to speak, but all that came out was a gurgling sound. Her throat seemed to be working, but no sound emerged. She pointed a shaky finger at her throat. Understanding dawned on Ruby. Kate couldn't speak because she didn't have a throat. She looked at Kate's neck, and that was when she saw the fangs, long, sharp fangs that glistened in the moonlight. Ruby stumbled back in horror as Kate lunged at her, her fangs bared in a snarl. She could see the wild, animalistic look in Kate's eyes, and she knew she was in danger. But before she could react, Kate was on top of her, her fangs sinking into Ruby's neck. She could feel the hot, coppery taste of her own blood filling her mouth. She screamed, thrashing wildly. She could feel Kate's body tremble beneath her as she drank deeply of her blood. Struggling to free herself from Kate's grasp, Ruby managed to claw at Kate's face, leaving angry red marks on her skin. With a final burst of strength, Ruby managed to push Kate off of her and scramble away. Shaking and terrified, she watched as Kate recoiled from her hand, licking her lips. "I'm sorry," Kate whispered, her voice hoarse and raspy. "I can't control myself." Ruby scrambled back, pressing herself against the wall. "What are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Kate looked at her, her eyes filled with sadness. "I'm a vampire," she said. Before Ruby could respond, Kate lunged at her again, but this time Ruby was ready. She reached out and grabbed Kate's wrist, digging her nails into her skin. Kate hissed in pain and tried to pull away, but Ruby held on tight. She could feel the power surging through Kate's veins, the dark, intoxicating power of the undead. With a sudden surge of strength, Ruby flipped the switch on the nearby lamp, plunging the room into darkness. Kate hissed in frustration as she recoiled from the sudden brightness. Ruby used the opportunity to scramble away, making a mad dash for the door. She could hear Kate's heavy footsteps behind her, her breathing growing more ragged with each step. As she burst through the front door, Ruby didn't stop running until she reached her car. She fumbled with her keys, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hear Kate's voice echoing behind her, calling her name, begging her to come back. But Ruby didn't listen. She slammed the car door shut and sped away from the house. The image of Kate's snarling face burned into her mind. The following weeks were a blur for Ruby. She couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had taken root in her stomach. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the horror in Kate's eyes, heard the desperation in her voice. She tried to convince herself that it had all been a bad dream, but the deep puncture marks on her neck were a constant reminder of the truth. She avoided going out at night, staying indoors with the curtains drawn, trying to convince herself that the horror she'd experienced wasn't real. But the fear was always there, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to consume her. One night, unable to bear the suffocating confines of her home any longer, Ruby decided to go for a walk. The moon was full, casting an eerie glow over the town. She walked slowly, her eyes fixed on the ground, trying to ignore the rustling in the bushes, the hooting of an owl. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes on her, watching her every move. Suddenly, a twig snapped behind her. She whirled around, her heart pounding in her chest, and saw a pair of eyes staring at her from the darkness. Screaming, she turned and ran, her mind screaming for her to get away. She ran blindly, not daring to look back, not daring to see what might be chasing her. She stumbled and fell, scraping her palms on the rough pavement. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to get up. And that's when she saw it, a dark figure standing over her, its eyes gleaming in the moonlight. She recognized those eyes, those cruel, mocking eyes. "Kate," she whispered, her voice trembling. Kate knelt down beside her, her face inches from Ruby's. "You can't escape me, Ruby," she whispered, her voice a raspy growl. "I'm a part of you now." She lunged forward, her fangs glinting in the moonlight. As Ruby braced for the end, she felt a sudden surge of power course through her veins. She pushed Kate away from her, her hands glowing with an otherworldly light. Kate stumbled back, her eyes wide with surprise. "What?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. Ruby stood up, her body trembling with newfound strength. I'm not afraid of you anymore, she whispered, her voice echoing with power. The townspeople found Ruby the next morning, standing amidst the ruins of Kate's house. In her hands, a small vial containing a dark red liquid. Beside her, the lifeless form of Kate, her eyes wide and vacant, her skin as pale as snow. As the sun rose, Ruby felt the familiar ache in her leg, the mark of Kate's fangs. She looked down at the vial in her hand, the blood of a vampire. With a sigh, she turned and walked away from the house, leaving behind the remnants of a love story that had turned into a nightmare.